They say you just need more time. But what if it's time itself that's quietly killing your soul? Procrastination isn't laziness. It's a spiritualized form of self-abandonment, a silent cult of later. You're not waiting for courage to arrive. You're sedating yourself with the fantasy that a future version of you will somehow clean up the present mess. But here's the brutal truth. No one's coming to save you from the war you refuse to fight. Have you noticed most of your dreams die in bed at 10 a.m.? That the silent agreement between you and the snooze button is actually a death ritual in disguise? Procrastination is society's most tolerated addiction because it wears the mask of planning, healing, even spirituality. But behind it, almost always lies unspoken trauma. As Gabor Mate warned, procrastination is a wound masquerading as choice. What you call a comfort zone is actually an emotional jail cell, decorated with productivity quotes. While the world screams, "Get it done," your mind whispers, "Run." But running from yourself is the only war you lose by default. Carl Jung said what we avoid controls us. And that's exactly what procrastination does. It turns your fear into ritual. Now more than ever, you're being programmed to delay. With endless distractions, dopamine drip apps, and spiritual influencers telling you to wait for alignment. But the raw truth is, your soul's already aligned. What's missing isn't motivation. It's mourning. Mourning for the time you've buried in the graveyard of someday. I know this because I was the high priest of postponement, a collector of dead ideas, a disciple of eternal preparation. And only when I saw my delay as a system of invisible control, as real and cruel as any prison, did I finally understand. Procrastination is obedience, and every day you delay, you obey. If you feel the weight of that obedience tightening like a noose, you're ready. Not for another plan, but for an exorcism. Map of Occult Reprogramming. The ritualistic tool that exorcises invisible beliefs. You weren't born procrastinating. You were programmed for it. From the earliest days, they trained you to obey the bell, not your internal rhythm. School taught you to sit still, wait, and ask permission, even to go to the bathroom. They called it discipline. But it was psychological conditioning. Your spontaneous drive was punished. Mistakes were shamed. Impulses labeled as problems. Slowly, your brain learned that action meant punishment, so you began to delay out of fear, then habit, and now as an act of emotional loyalty to a system that still owns your time. As a child, when you said, "I want to do it now," the world said, "It's not time yet." And that now was suffocated until it vanished. You learned that desire should be postponed, that drive needs approval, that acting on instinct makes you broken. So procrastination became emotional obedience, a hidden script that still runs your decisions, like invisible malware inside your will. Daniel Kahneman showed the brain prefers immediate relief over long-term gain. But the real problem isn't biology, it's culture. The comfort algorithm has evolved. You're exposed to thousands of stimuli daily, each one engineered to be more addictive than the last. Each notification is a micro-relief. Each swipe, a micro-forgetting. And slowly, you became a servant to an emotional calendar set by external forces. Today, procrastination is monetized. Every minute you delay, someone profits. Big tech doesn't want your fulfillment, they want your fragmented attention, because a focused soul doesn't consume like a distracted one. A soul in motion is dangerous, so they prefer you sedated, scrolling, endlessly preparing for a life you never actually live. You don't delay because you're weak. You delay because you were trained, with military precision. Now the choice is yours. Be a product, or be present. Waiting is not neutral, it molds you. And every day you don't act, someone else acts for you. There's a character inside you that feeds on inaction. It wears the mask of the perfectionist, the overthinker, the one more course, the "I'm not ready yet." But beneath every mask is one thing: fear. Not just fear of failure, but fear of fully existing. Because action requires presence, and presence demands the death of control. Carl Jung warned, What we refuse to confront in the unconscious becomes our fate. Your procrastination is just that. A fate engineered by fragmented selves you've never dared to meet. The inner saboteur isn't evil, it's protective. Every time you delay, you're trying to avoid the collapse of an identity. The perfectionist doesn't fear failing, it fears being seen as almost. But this protection comes at a price. You start dividing your psyche into pieces. The dreamer, the doer, the escape artist, the punisher. And when these fragments stop speaking to each other, paralysis is born. You become a zombie, busy but absent, in motion, yet stagnant. A fractured soul trapped between 1,000 inner voices that cancel each other out. If you're tired of obeying a shadow that wears your face, it's time to cross the threshold. The map of occult reprogramming is not a fix. It's a ritual. One designed to silence the inner noise and confront the original wound beneath your delay. At this point, procrastination becomes an identity. You start introducing yourself as someone who's just like that. You justify, rationalize, even spiritualize. You use self-awareness as an excuse. I need to heal first. But healing doesn't come from waiting. It comes from friction, from the confrontation between shadow and action, from doing it even if you're unsure, unprepared, afraid. Procrastination is a ritual of protection that became a prison. You padded your cell with emotional cushions, and now you feel safe there, because you confuse safety with survival. But living is not safe, and maybe that's why you keep postponing. Postponing the moment you finally breathe as your full self. Procrastination is sold as freedom. You can do anything whenever you want. But no one tells you that this kind of freedom is a velvet cage. The more you can postpone, the more you dissolve into the anxiety of never beginning. The system doesn't have to stop you. It just needs you to keep choosing later. That's the new form of control, a freedom anesthetized by endless choice. You think you're procrastinating out of laziness, but what you're really experiencing is choice fatigue. 1,000 options, 0 routes. Consumer culture hands you infinite goals, but no silence. So you trade presence for performance, action for comparison, your soul for a to-do list you never chose, and at the end of the day, you're emptier than ever, because nothing was truly lived. Robert Cialdini exposed how too many choices create paralysis. You live that daily. With every scroll, every app, every dopamine burst, something important gets delayed for something meaningless. But the real loss isn't time, it's your capacity to act. Procrastination weakens your existential muscles. It leaves you craving desire itself, but incapable of action. You become hungry, but immobile, restless, but passive. Social media and instant reward systems fuel this illusion. You feel productive watching productivity content. You feel changed by saving self-help posts you'll never read. Everything looks like action, but it's all consumption. Today, procrastination is big business, and you're the perfect customer. Tired, distracted, always ready to delay. Modern comfort isn't the absence of pain, it's the absence of purpose. That's the trap. When everything is possible, nothing feels necessary, and without urgency, you become a spectator in your own life, a ghost in a functioning body, free for everything, imprisoned by nothing. There comes a moment when the soul screams for movement, not out of panic but from something ancient. The will, strangled by 1,000 maybes, begins to breathe. And you feel it, not as a rush, but as sacred discomfort. A vibration in your chest, a rising inner noise that doesn't paralyze but pushes. This is the beginning of the end of delay, the moment the body understands what the mind has avoided, that to live means to act. That action is prayer in motion. Today, you're not going to beat procrastination, you're going to bury it with a symbolic act, a small but irreversible move. It could be a single word written, a single breath taken with intent, a decision made in silence. What matters isn't the size of the action, it's the energy behind it. When action comes from the soul, not guilt, the spell breaks. You stop trying to be disciplined and start being real. the will begins to breathe again. The fire, once buried, sparks with risk. Procrastination doesn't die when you finish something. It dies when you begin. Begin even if it's messy, even if it's small, even if no one sees. Because the first step isn't practical, it's sacred. It's a pact with presence. And every time you skip it, you sacrifice a piece of your authenticity on the altar of fear. But not today. You don't need more time. You need more truth. And if you're ready for more than truth, if you're ready for confrontation, exorcism, and symbolic death, then step into the map of occult reprogramming. This is not a tool. It's a ritual, one that doesn't fix your delay. It dismantles the self who needed it. Comment below. I kill later with sacred action. Share this with someone still trapped in that invisible cage. If you're ready to break the spell, subscribe now. Every time you delay, someone inside you dies. Every time you act, someone is reborn.